Today on Calm Talk, we're talking about how so many YouTubers are leaving the space and what causes burnout and how to avoid it.
Hello and welcome to Calm Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotion. It's the show from devoted geeks who are devoted to letting people know that they are loved. I'm Celeste, and with me is
Dallas.
Today, we're talking about some things that are happening in the YouTube space.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this personally. We've talked about it with other people. And we decided that this is a topic that we needed to address.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to be on YouTube to get burnout.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a content creator. So we got some tips and tricks from our resident LPCS, Demara.
Yep. Yeah. We do need to get some premise about what's going on.
Yeah.
Why we're doing this. This past week, famed YouTuber Matt Pat, who's been on the channel on YouTube for 13 years now.
Yeah. He was one of the inspirations for Geek Devotions.
Yeah. But he retired.
Yeah.
And it took everybody by surprise. They were shocked by it. They're like, what is happening here? Matt Pat, a staple, you know, and apparently a lot of other YouTubers are dipping out.
He wasn't the first either. We don't follow a lot of the other ones who have done it, but they are ones who are major players in the YouTube scene. Exactly.
And so listening to Matt's conversations to reasons why he's backing out. And we're not how do I say this? What he's done is healthy.
Yes.
And we are very proud.
We support
absolutely
what he's done. We're not here to bash him. We're not here to say he shouldn't have done it.
Right.
He knows his life and his family best.
Exactly. And we want to say, Matt, if you watch this, we are so proud of you for choosing to take care of your family and yourself and doing what you're doing. Because the reality is content creation is difficult.
Yeah.
Doing what you and I do, doing what he on the level he does.
Oh my gosh,
it's hardcore, and there's been a lot of conversations about it. You guys will probably see articles. I saw Love Thy Nerd just dropped an article talking about it this morning. But again, it's a lot, especially when in the spaces he is. When you go from it's a hobby, to it's a I'm just doing this for fun to like my paycheck depends on it. I don't care what it is that you are doing, that you enjoy, that you do it for a paycheck. It takes on a different thing when you start taking a paycheck.
When your family when your family's ability to pay your bills relies on it, it becomes something different.
Exactly. Like with Geek Devotions, our plan is to go full time with this eventually if we can and do certain things. But like for me, just I am a content creator by profession.
Yeah.
I just do it for a church. And I'm one part youth pastor, one part content creator, media. And for me, I love doing art. I love doing podcasts, I love making videos. But there is a level of I feel anxiety. I feel frustrated. I don't feel like myself is good enough because my check is tied to it.
Yeah.
At any given time, my boss, my lead pastor can come in and go, hey, I appreciate what you've done, but you're done. Yeah. And that's kind of terrifying at times.
Can be. Now, for the record, our pastor would not just boot us out.
No.
We have a good relationship with him. We're not
we're not worried about it.
Not worried about this.
But it is something in the back of my mind going, man, am I good enough? Is what I'm creating good enough for the church, for Scott, for me to continue to paycheck to support us as a family? And you had talked, I was frustrated with the project I've been working on lately, and you had said, I don't think you've never known me to really be happy with anything I've created. And I was thinking about it. It's because for so long, being creative has been tied to what I do. And I want it to be good.
Yeah.
My desire is for it to be the best that it possibly can, because I want to, be glorifying of God. Right. But also because I don't want to let people down. What I create has a purpose, and I don't want people down. My pastor, again, it's not just that he's my boss, but I look up to Scott. I don't want to let him down with what I do for him. Right. I don't want to let the church down. And nobody in the church cares. They don't. They don't care. Well,
and you have to keep in mind that, and this is something else that goes into when you are a content creator, that you see things they don't. Yeah. You and I can see things wrong with a graphic that no one else notices unless they are trained to see it. Right. I was helping train one of the young ladies that's coming onto the media team to run the booth. And she had been going through a process where she'd kind of be in the booth for a little bit, and then she'd go sit with her mom. And then she'd come and learn something else, and then she'd go sit with her mom.
Right.
Like through several services.
Exactly.
And she told me, because I asked her something, I was like, do you know how to do this? Have you learned this? Because I hadn't trained her the week before. And she goes, no, but I do notice now when the lights change. Didn't ever notice it before, but now I do.
Now you're in it.
So it's a thing.
Yeah. So this is an important conversation for us mentally, but also for everybody. Like Celeste said at the top of the show, everyone can go through burnout.
Yeah.
Everyone. I don't care what it is. And shout out to Demara, my amazing sister, who is a licensed professional counselor. I want to make sure that's understood. What we're giving you guys, what we read, we're going to read some stuff that she gave us.
Yeah.
That's the actual licensed professional counselor stuff. We're going to comment on it. We're not professionals.
No, not at all.
But what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to take what Demara's given us, and on the website version of this podcast,
listed out.
We'll be listed out all this stuff for you guys to check out. And if you're listening, if you're like you download this off of YouTube or off the podcast feed, there will be a link because this is some really important stuff. And so we're going to break it up in two sections. We're going to have conversation about signs of burnout or brownout, actually.
Yeah, because there's a stage before burnout.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about some key things for mental health, staying healthy, stuff like that. So let's jump into it, Celeste, before the ice storm kicks in here in Shreveport.
We're on a time crunch.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so the email says burnout doesn't just happen. It does happen, but burnout doesn't just happen. It doesn't just mysteriously appear. Mm-hmm. There's actually signs to know that you're struggling. And the first stage in the beginning is you're taking on more. You're skipping your lunches. You're staying at lunch. And these things can happen on occasion, but if you're doing it consistently, it adds up.
Yeah.
And it says we have a problem because we typically love what we are doing, but this shows that you're starting to have a personal imbalance. And I think that statement, it starts to show you're having a personal imbalance, is important.
Yeah.
Because if you can go, this has been a little out of whack. Mm-hmm. If someone goes, you've been doing this a little bit too much, you need to take a break, then you can circumvent all the rest of it just by reprioritizing things. I
know that I've been guilty of this. Like, there have been several times where I've come in and I've worked straight through. Like, I come to the office and I immediately hit the computer and start working on graphics or video or something like that because I want to get it done in a timely manner. And sometimes there's a crunch that I feel like I need to get done. Yeah. And I've worked through lunch. I've been eating. I'm not skipping food. I am well fed. But but I know that and that's the thing is like, and there's been times where I'm like, I need to stop.
Yeah. Well, and like I, for a while, worked a job where if work was there to be done, I was not allowed to go take a lunch. It was just a failure of communication. It wasn't supposed to be that way, but it's what happened for a good 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I would do work, go take a few bites. Do work, go take a few bites. And it wears on you.
I could tell the days that you had to do that because you were exhausted more.
Yeah.
A little snippier. I'm
sorry.
You never got on to me, obviously, but I mean, it's okay. But you were. And it's just, you can tell when that happens with you.
So you can also tell when it happens to other people. So, I mean, keep an eye on yourself, but obviously keep an eye on somebody else.
Word.
Okay, so the stage 2 is onset of stress. You feel overworked, overwhelmed, but carrying on and putting up with what is going on around you. In this stage, you will actually find you don't sleep through the night. And when you hit a weekend or your time off, you find you sleep hard and longer. I can relate to that specifically because when I was in college, when I was out of state college, I did not sleep through the week.
Yeah.
I stayed up. I did my homework.
Right.
I read. I did all the things that I needed to do. And then on Saturday, I slept until dinner.
Right.
And then Sunday, I went to church and slept until the next day.
Right.
And part of that was I did not have a good support system because I had moved out of my support system. And once I built a support system, some of that changed. We've had my friend Tim on the podcast before. He would come and fuss at me if I hadn't eaten. He would call me and be like, hey, I didn't see you at lunch.
Right.
I'd be like, I'm asleep, Tim. And he's like, I have food. I'm coming.
Thank you, Tim, for feeding my wife when she wasn't my wife. So I can identify seasons I've been in this.
Yeah.
Where I was stressed out. I was trying to get stuff done. I was doing videos. I was doing art. I was taking care of other things. There were other aspects in life outside of the church that were affecting me, personal stuff. And I know there have been times where I just didn't sleep.
One time in particular that I can think of when you specifically went through this was 2020.
Oh, yeah.
When everything shut down, you just went.
Yeah.
And I'm in the background going, thankfully, I was furloughed because I was able to go, I'm taking care of this. I'm taking care of that.
I can't tell you how much of a relief it was for me that you stepped in, even just for a few weeks, just do the podcast. You still had to call me and ask questions. I don't understand this. And that was fine. But that was a huge relief during that time frame.
And just not even stuff with Geek Devotions, but stuff at the house. Because we generally split the responsibilities of the house. You do the dishes, I do the dishes. We take turns cooking. We both do laundry. We both fold, some of us better than others. I'm not one of those. Calling myself out, not you. Making that clear. But just because I wasn't working, I was able to do more stuff.
Right.
So when you got home, there was no laundry to be done.
Yeah.
There wasn't any of that because I had it under control.
Right.
So it was a blessing and a benefit that it happened like that when things picked up for you, I suddenly had all this extra time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just because it's in the show, you make sure you're close to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. All right, well, let's go to the stage 3, which is called chronic stress.
Okay, it says feeling unwell, masking feelings, not coping, exhausted, and joyless. This can also be described as brownout, a step prior to actual burnout. But this stage it almost feels like you have a cold that you can't shake, and you would be tempted to fake it until you make it. Damara, I don't appreciate you calling me out like this because I'm bad about that, about faking it till I make it.
Yeah. This is, but that's a little different than the context of this right here. But it is. I mean, I've seen this.
Yeah.
I know people who feel chronically unwell, and don't get me wrong, there are some stuff out there where people just feel chronically unwell because
they have chronic illness.
And there's some weird stuff going around right now, anyways. But I've seen people who have this chronic stress, and I've seen people they'd sit down to relax, and because that chronic stress in them, they're just fidgeting because they're looking for what they need to do because they're stressed out about everything else.
And that's different from if you have something that makes you naturally fidgety. You can tell the difference between I am a natural fidgeter and I am so filled with stress that I can't sit still.
Hey, I want to point this out. If you guys are listening to this and you're like, man, is this me? Is it me? Go talk to a professional. Don't self-diagnose yourself.
No, that's not what this is for.
But go talk to a professional. All right, what's stage 4, babe?
Stage 4 is actual burnout. And at this stage, you are physically and emotionally spent. There is nothing left. Typically, this looks like insomnia, exhaustion, headaches, the physiological symptoms like apathy, irritability, and depression. That can definitely happen. So I don't know if I've necessarily had this one happen.
I've not hit this yet. I feel like I've been close to brownout, but I have not had this one, and hopefully I don't. But this is just, and again, these are just symptoms. These are signs that things are taking place.
Something's happened.
And when you hit this, I've known 1 or 2 people who have hit this, and that whole thing about depression, irritability, that's real.
Yeah.
And we can't. Some people try to dismiss that kind of stuff.
You can't.
You can't, man. Mental health is so important.
It really is.
And when you hit that stage, you need help. You're beyond help almost.
Well, and some of this is you can have depression but not be burnt out. Because I've struggled with depression in the past, and I had similar symptoms, but it wasn't that I was burnt out. It was that I needed help, struggling with my own mental state.
Right.
And I got help. I'm good.
Yes.
Just to be clear.
All All right. What is stage 5? Habitual burnout?
Habitual burnout. This involves superficial rest. It's like a waiting period for the old cycle to just start back up again. So basically you go, I'm burnt out, I'm going to rest. And then you start everything again and you go through the stages again without actually breaking into the stages and going, something needs to change.
Yeah. Demara gave us a really great note that I want to point out here. Throughout each stage, you will find yourself becoming more negative in speech towards others and yourself. So you start dogging yourself, you start talking bad about people, whatever. Behaviors will slowly become different and odd because the body itself is becoming trained to maintain, but physically exhausted.
You know, I don't think enough people talk about the fact that your physical ability to do things sometimes is very much linked to your mental state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I have friends who talk about the fact that they just can't get off the couch. And it's because their mental state is so bad. Physically, they're fine. But their mental state, they've had an issue where they just can't move.
Absolutely. There is a bondage that takes place in a person's life when they're under certain things. And there is a spiritual aspect of it.
Absolutely.
And there's a mental aspect of it. And yes, the prayer does a lot of things that change people's lives, but there's also some mental stuff you got to work through sometimes. I know people that have put themselves in wheelchairs because their mental state is just so degraded. And there's a pairing of mental and spiritual and physical that takes place.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily matter which one happened first. It's another cycle.
And you have got to handle healing on all fronts.
Yeah.
There is very much a physical thing. You know, get up, exercise, take care of yourself, eat better.
Yeah.
Do stuff like that. Drink some OJ in the morning. I'm working on it. And but then there's the spiritual side of things. You need to be in communion with God. You need to be praying. You need to be worshiping, actual worship, actual praying, actual reading the Word of God, and asking it and seeing about it changing, actual communication and fellowship with other individuals. But then there's the mental side of things.
Yeah.
It's talking to a counselor.
Yeah.
Doing what you need to avoid those stages that we saw right there.
Well, and also if you know that there's something that will trigger that in you, if you know that, then avoiding that.
Absolutely.
Like if there's something that you know that will get you spiritually, people are great about going, well, that just affects my spirit. And they don't do that thing. But they don't think about the fact that sometimes there's a physical response. Sometimes there's something happening in your environment that has made you physically react.
Yeah.
And then that in turn triggers off the emotional and the spiritual. And it's just this cycle that happens.
Well, this myself. I need to achieve this. I need to achieve that. I need to achieve this. And that's where the scripture comes in place of, what good is it to gain the whole world but forfeit your soul?
Yeah.
And that word soul, there's so much wrapped up to it. It's not just like a spirit, man. There's a mental aspect of it. There's a physical thing. We have to maintain those things appropriately so we can avoid the burnout. With physical burnout will come spiritual burnout.
Yeah.
So, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about keys to maintain your job and mental health. These are kind of Demara's suggestions to you if you're going through some stuff and maybe reverse some of these stages of burnout outside of go see a counselor.
Although I think that is on the list.
It may be. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, see you after the break.
This podcast is a proud member of Culture Box. Whether you enjoy geeky reviews, comedy, or original fiction, you can open up the Culture Box and find something excellent for your soul. Point your web browser to culturebox.media.
In a world where live-action movies reign supreme, two awesome dudes are keeping things animated. If you want to hear a couple of animation nerds gush about the movies they love, then hop, run, or fly on over to The Cellcast. Available on most podcast platforms.
Hey, welcome back to Calm Talk. Glad you guys could be with us. Encourage you guys to check out those people we talked about in our little break. If you're coming in randomly halfway through this podcast, we've been talking about burnout, avoiding burnout. This is kind of inspired in light of what we saw on YouTube recently, where a lot of major creators have had to back out for their family, for their own self. And again, this is not, we're talking in the context as creators, but this can be anybody, whatever job you have, whether it's job, even in school situations, stuff like that, just life. Burnout happens, and there's some key things you need to do. And I want to make sure this is understood. I feel like we've made it pretty clear. We are very much advocates of the spiritual side of things, prayer, worship, stuff like that, being in touch with God. But at the same time, we're also big advocates of the mental side of things. Go see a counselor. Again, all the tips that we're reading from our phones. This comes from a licensed professional counselor who has years of training, is actively working in the spaces, and does some amazing work here locally in our area. Yeah. And so we're not just throwing out colloquialisms.
Yeah. Be your best. Do good.
Right. All right. So these are keys to maintain your job and mental health. Number 1, daily self-care is needed. This includes sleep, eating habits, at least 30 minutes of an hour of downtime a day, and exercise.
That one's kind of hard. Like, because sometimes when you get super busy, all you want to do is go to sleep. Mm-hmm. You don't want to eat. You don't want to spend 30 minutes of downtime, because as soon as you sit down, you're just ready to go to bed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But these are like super basic things too that like the people don't even think about sometimes, like making sure you're eating okay. You know, at least 30 minutes to an hour of downtime. This is like, and I've heard people talk about, like, this is like actual decompression. Like, it's not just like, you know, oh, I'm going to go hang out with the guys and do something. Like, this is get alone for a second, relax, decompress. Exercise, that's one of those things I struggle with for sure. I
mean, but it can be something as simple as just getting up and walking. So like you and I, we sit a lot for our jobs. Yeah. And so for us, just getting up and walking around and cooking a meal, because we're moving and we're doing things, can be a form of some exercise. Absolutely. That's just my opinion. I'm not a medical professional anymore. Don't take that opinion for fact. Exactly. But in my opinion.
No, for me, like, so for downtime for me, it'd be like hanging out, playing video games for a bit, relaxing, reading some manga. What's about you? What's a downtime thing for you? Reading.
Because I can disconnect my brain.
Yeah.
Also, if I'm in the story of a really good game, I can just zone out.
Yeah.
I have a few shows that are my comfort shows that I go to. So when bad things happen, Dallas knows something's wrong if he comes home and Hanakimi's on the screen. He's like, "What happened? Are you okay?"
All right, number 2, and this is a big one: maintain balance. Your job isn't your whole life. When you cause your world to mold to your job, you build stress and get closer to burnout. This is so good.
Yeah.
Your job isn't your whole life. Now, this is difficult for folks because we're like, I got to pay the bills. I have to eat food. And then you got people like me where like, ministry is my job, ministry is my life. It's just a natural thing of what we do. We do that.
Especially when you're in a situation where your job is so closely tied to your personality, to your giftings, to your calling. Yeah. It's hard to differentiate.
Right. You have got to take that personal time for yourself. That's step 1 that Tamara gave us. I really like this phrase: when you cause your world to mold to your job, you build stress. And again, I've been there. We all have. I'm thankful that, especially in the last several years, our lead pastor has been like, "Hey, go do something else. Relax. You know,
get out of the office.
Don't be so. Don't be. You know, like we don't do as many Saturday things as a staff as we used to do, because he understands that's built around it. And you guys need to, when you don't base your life around your job too much. Like, you got to, obviously. You got to pay bills. Don't be one of these idiots who are like, I'm going to quiet quit. I know my value. Look, know your value, but be a decent employee.
Yeah.
But, have some appropriate boundaries for you. All right. Number 3, talk to a therapist. Sometimes.
I told you it was on the list.
Sometimes we don't see what's fully going on around us. A therapist can help you navigate what is going on around you and help you communicate your needs.
I feel like that this one is one that people will be like, well, I talked to my sister or I talked to my friend.
Unless your friend or sister is a therapist, and legally they're not necessarily supposed to give you proper advice.
They don't count because they're
too close.
They're too close to the situation.
Yeah.
A therapist is someone who is not in your situation, and their only stake in the game is you being healthy.
Exactly. And what the mayor's talking about here is a licensed professional counselor, an actual therapist. You can go to your pastor and have some ministry time with them. At our church, the Healing Place, as a staff, we're very big about saying, don't call me, ask for a counseling session.
No.
I'm not a counselor. I cannot legally counsel you.
Nope.
I can do ministry with you. I can walk you through some fundamentals of Christianity, of faith, of spirituality. I can pray with you. I do believe there are certain spiritual things that we can pray for and pray out of you.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. Don't twist that though. But there are things you need to see a counselor about.
Yeah.
And I will be the first to look, you need some help. You're definitely got some bipolar stuff going on. You need to see a medical professional.
Yeah.
And so that's what she's talking about seeing a actual counselor. You did that, and that was great for you.
It was. And my counselor was somebody that I had met before. Not I hadn't known her well, but I had met her, but she was someone Demara recommended. And because I trust Demara, and Demara went, she can help you.
Yeah.
I was able to go in with an attitude of Demara trusts this person, so I'm going to trust this person.
Yeah. And there's some people like, oh, the counselors are all just, there are Christian counselors.
There are.
And now I want to say that counselors who are Christians, not Christian counselors, those are different. God bless these programs that have the training. That sometimes, though, I'm just putting this out there, some of those Christian counseling services don't have actual licensed counselors.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying that they don't do a great job. But if you want professional help, make sure it's a licensed professional counselor. Yeah. But there are many who are believers. The ones you saw was a believer. Yeah. My sister is a born-again believer. She prays. She's in the Word. She will tell you straight. She will point you to Jesus.
Yep.
But she's a professional.
She is.
All right. So cool. All right. This is another big one. Manage your priorities. Know what is actually important in your life. I have friends that will instantly, things are not typed correctly. Friends that will instantly say no to a job if it asks them to work on a Sunday.
Yep.
I was just talking to some guys the other day about this very topic. There were some guys that were looking to start their own show. And one guy we're talking about, he's like, what is something you wish you had known before you started? I was like, I wish I had been a little more intentional about creating boundaries with Geek Devotions in our personal life. And I said, sit down with your wife. If you're married, if you're not married, sit down and map out your week, map out your what's important to you. Like, what are your priorities? Your personal self needs to be a priority. Your spouse needs to be a priority. Your kids need priority. And figure out what that really means and map that out. And then move on from there.
Yeah. And then you can figure out where you can fit things in around priorities. Like, you and I do our very best to at least have one night a week where we're not doing anything Geek Devotions related. We're not doing anything ministry related.
Right.
With the church, we're not doing, if we can help it, we're not doing anything where we're helping somebody. Obviously, sometimes you have to be flexible with that. Right. And, things happen. You have to go help someone move. Right. You have to help someone decompress.
Right.
Like, things happen, but we have that protected time of at least once a week. We go, we're going to watch a movie. Yeah. We're going to play video games. We're going to sit on the couch and not look at each other, but we're together and it's okay.
Yeah. Exactly. We're just going to be together. And so manage your priorities appropriately. All right, last one. Keep your family in the loop if you begin to struggle with stress. Accountability is key to overcoming stress and burnout. And I'm going to say heck to the yes.
Yeah.
That is so key, is communicating with each other, going like, I don't feel good. Now, your family if they're close, they can read you. They go, okay, cool. But I can't tell you, there are people I've talked to who they found themselves in a bad place, and everyone's like, why didn't you just say something?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me you're going through this?
Yeah.
I would have been happy to help, to maybe take some off your boat, like you did for me back during the COVID stuff. It was, you took stuff off the thing tray for me so I could focus on what needed to be done, which was the church. And you learned some new skills, you learned some new stuff. I think you got a little more appreciation for my side of things.
Yeah. Well, I always appreciated it, but I definitely appreciated some of the frustrations.
So, but we have to communicate. You know, you did that with me, a couple of years ago, where you were dealing with some depression stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just don't. And I was like, let's fix it. Like, what do you need me to do? Like,
and sometimes the question, what do you need me to do, is intimidating if you are in that situation, because you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you are on the other end of this and you see someone who is potentially in burnout, maybe just try to take some of their stuff. Like, you didn't have to, I just hit that. You didn't have to ask me to take over some stuff. I took the initiative.
Yeah.
Because you were still trying to do everything.
Yeah.
You were like, I can do it all. And I'm like, no, you can't.
Need you to stop.
I would like to spend some time with you when I get a chance. Please stop.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, yeah, I mean, it was Friday.
No, there wasn't Friday. So, but sometimes it's hard to vocalize, and sometimes it's okay to go, I don't know what I need other than I need help.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to have the answers.
Yeah.
That can be intimidating in of itself. You don't have to have the answers of how to fix things. You just have to have someone who knows what's going on and will hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And make it someone who you can trust. Make it someone who's actually going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Oh, so good.
Because, like, you will tell me what I want to hear sometimes, but you always make sure to tell me what I need to hear. Damara always tells me what I need to hear.
She will.
She has no qualms.
No.
She will say it nicely.
Yes.
And in a way that...
Thank you for saying it that way. She'll say it nicely.
Yeah. She's not a jerk about it.
Don't walk up to somebody who's struggling and just be a flat out bum to them and just like, that
doesn't help.
They're hurting already. No,
Yeah.
yes, sometimes you got to be a little forceful and be like, look, I'm taking care of this.
Yeah. Well, and Damara has done that before, where there were situations where either you or I, and she was like, I can handle this.
Right.
We're like, okay, cool. You've got this. Let me let you handle this.
Right. And we have people in we've structured some stuff. We have people on our team who can do something. There's some things, keep in mind, you will only be able to do. And in those situations, you need to be okay not being able to do them for a while.
Yeah.
There are certain things with Geek Devotions that only I can do.
Yeah.
For very specific reasons.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I will get to them.
It'll happen. So when I was going through counseling, one of the things that really struck me, and it was such a dumb thing, it felt like, to be like thinking about this for weeks afterwards. But it was is it the end of the world if the laundry doesn't get folded? And so my first response to her was, yes, it is. And she goes, Celeste, no, it's not. I was like, okay, maybe it's not, but it feels like it.
Right.
So that's if it's something that only you can do, you have to ask, is it the end of the world if it doesn't happen right now?
Right.
And the answer is usually no.
Yeah. Now, if it just never happens, that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. Don't use this as an excuse to, well, they said at Geek Devotions, I don't ever have to do this ever again. No, we didn't.
We did not say that.
We did not say
that.
that.
Devil's a liar. Do not put words in my mouth. I rebuke you. So, all right. Well, that's kind of the conversation we wanted to have.
Yeah.
Not a big, long conversation. I hope it wasn't long. I'm not sure. I'm not seeing the timer, but
we've just been talking. We don't know.
Anything you want to add on to this list?
Get help.
Yeah.
Like, not to be rude with it, but just
get help.
If you think you're struggling, get help.
Yeah. There's no shame in it. And if anybody shames you for it, let me know.
We'll punch them.
We're not going to do physical violence, but we're scary looking.
I might, depending on who they are.
Yeah. But there is no shame in getting help.
No,
period.
None.
There's no shame in going, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I can't handle this anymore. We start Geek Devotions off each week. A show from Devoted Geeks are devoted to let you know you're loved. If you don't watch past this moment, know this. We love you, care about you. There is a plan and purpose for your life. We say that because there's some people who they're so stressed out. They're like, there's no point to life. There's nothing else I can do. I was talking with a gentleman, a grown man, almost twice my age, who was struggling. He's like, what's the point? What's the point of me doing this? I work, I come home. I work, I come home. And I'm always behind. And I had to walk him through. I was like, but you got kids.
Yeah.
You have a family. You are imparting into your kids things that need to be imparted.
Mm-hmm.
You're operating in certain things that you've never operated before. And it's because God's giving you opportunity. Yeah, there's stuff. We live in a fallen world. We have taxes. We have bills. And, we're not going to get into social, economic, political stuff.
Nope.
But crap happens.
Yep.
But if you are only focused on seeing how rough things are, but instead of not focusing on the blessings that are in front of you and the things that are given to you and the opportunities that have been given to you, all you will ever see are those things.
Yeah.
And then you just fall further into depression. Stop it. Focus on what good things are.
I would also say be cautious who you let in.
Go, girl.
Because some people are not going to help.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are drowning themselves. And they can't help you not drown if they're already in the mouth of a shark.
Yep.
Like you have to be, you obviously want your family to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know your family is struggling, find somebody else outside of the situation to help you, like a therapist or a pastor.
Exactly.
To be the person to go, I don't know what I need.
And find somebody who we'll keep going with this show, but find somebody who's mature enough to handle. We talked about this a couple weeks on Geek Devotions.
Yeah.
There are some people that you bring into your whole life and you're like, this is what I'm going through, and they can't handle it.
No.
They're not mature enough to handle it. They're not spiritually and mentally able to handle it, and they carry the burdens for you, and they become offended for you. Or worse yet, they thrive on your issues.
Mm-hmm.
They go, oh, well, I am the only person that can help you.
If somebody says that they are the only person that can help you, run.
Mm-hmm. Or if they make it all about them. So, all right, we're going to end the show before we just go off the rabbit
because we're just going to keep talking.
Hey, thanks for listening to Calm Talk today. Check out our stuff, geekdevotions.com, for our website, where you find devotions and articles and all kinds of stuff, other podcasts that we do. And know this, we love you guys.
Yeah.
That's why we did this, because we're risking an ice storm right now because this was important.
Yeah.
This is a serious conversation that needs to go out.
And we wanted to make sure that you could see our faces.
Yeah.
So that you knew what we meant. You can judge our sincerity.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. We were literally trying to figure out how to make this happen. Thank you to our home church, The Healing Place.
We love you.
Because this is the studio. I'm also testing out a new way of doing stuff in the studio. So that's part of it.
I mean, it helps.
But we wanted you to see our faces to understand we genuinely care about you guys.
Yeah.
You're important to us. And this is a real conversation. If you're struggling, find help. If you are dealing with depression, anxiety, you're burnt out, talk to somebody. Get the help you need. You are important.
Yeah.
You may not feel like it,
but you are.
All right. Well, Celeste, on that somber low note, land the plane for us. For those of you listening only, she just flapped her wings.
Flapped my arms. I don't have wings.
You made wings. You went, doo-doo.
I'm landing.
Gonna make it.
Let me slow down a little bit.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Calm Talk today. If you have loved this episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify to rate and leave a review. It is very much appreciated. So until next time,
That's yours.
Stay devoted.
Peace and love.